Good evening and welcome to Film Forum, Atlanta's newest movie talk show. We'll be reviewing the latest movies and keeping you in touch with the film industry here in Atlanta. My name's Steve Markos. I'm with you each and every week. And also with me, as always, is Aaron Siegel. How you doing tonight, Aaron?
Just fine, Steve.
You could ask me how I'm doing?
How you doing, Steve?
Well, I got a cold, so I'm not doing fine. So hopefully I won't be hacking and hawing up here. All right, we got a lot to cover tonight. Well, one thing, let me remind you that we are a call-in show. If you have any calls or questions, I should say, about any films we reviewed, movies you want us to review in the future, or for our guest at the end of the show, be sure to call 873-6713. I'm going to give a real quick synopsis of what we're doing tonight. As usual, we got a couple movies to do. Aaron, what do we got for the people out there in TV land tonight?
Well, tonight we've got 1492, and we've got The Public Eye.
All right, that sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun. Immediately following that, well, not immediately, but sometime after those two films, we'll be doing the Critics' Choice. This week, gunfighter movies or westerns, anything except for cowboy and Indians, which I guess basically leaves gunfighter movies. And then, as always, at the end of the show, we have a very special guest who works in the film industry. And as always, Aaron's in charge of getting that guest. Aaron, we want to tell us a little bit about her and what she does and why people should stay tuned.
We have a prop builder tonight. Her name is Hilary Henkin, and she'll be on later on tonight.
All right, sounds good. Now, we have a lot to do right now, so we might as well get started with the films. Each and every week, I give it to you. What do you want to start with?
I'll start with 1492.
All right, sounds like a winner. All right, let's go.
Okay, 1492 is the story of Columbus. Now, this is not to be confused with the movie Christopher Columbus, The Discovery, which was released a couple of months back. If you confused and you went to see the first film because you've heard of all the hoopla about it, the answer is this is the film, 1492, Conquest of Paradise. It stars Gerard Depardieu and Sigourney Weaver and Armand Assante. And the film is directed by Ridley Scott, who has so many films I had to write them down. Alien, Blade Runner, Someone to Watch Over Me, Legend, Black Rain, and last year's hit Thelma and Louise. And Ridley Scott directed this film, and I'd like to go ahead and set up the clip here. What we've got is Columbus at the dinner table after he's made his discovery, and he's bringing some of the riches from the new land. And in this shot, you've got Armand Assante and Sigourney Weaver. So why don't we just go ahead and roll the clip?
The islands are covered with trees.
Forgive me, Don Cristobal. What about gold?
That's not the purest metal I've ever seen. Is there more?
And that's a clip from 1492, The Conquest of Paradise.
Which came out last Friday, I believe.
Right, it opened last Friday.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to start off by saying that this picture, the lighting is done well. The cinematography is excellent. It's also done in scope, CinemaScope, or Panavision is what they call it, where the picture is stretched. So that's why the screen was letterboxed. It's a bigger picture than what you might normally see. And the music was by Vangelis, who also did the music for Blade Runner.
And when you were talking about the lighting, reminded me a lot of the same type of lighting and the use of smoke as my favorite film of all time, Apocalypse Now. if you remember back from our first show.
Right.
Very similar lighting. You know, the ships are backlit beautifully against an orange sky on a sea of gold. It's a visually beautiful film.
It's truly remarkable. The cinematography is the best that I've seen in a long time.
Yeah.
I do have to go ahead and dog Christopher Columbus. I went and saw that just to get a frame of reference. It's a little more factual, but it's Columbus Goes Hollywood, and it is.
I heard that was a bad. You made the original.
I am just so upset because Marlon Brando was excellent in the role of Torquemada in that version, and I kind of wish they got him for this film. But Christopher Columbus was a cheap way of capitalizing on 1492.
Yeah. Well, 1492, what I love to see is that Ridley Scott has gotten back to the type of filmmaking that he made me one of his best fans. For instance, Blade Runner and Legend. His last two films, he seemed to get away from the artistry of Thelma and Louise and Black Rain. He was basically just telling a story at that point. I'll go as far as say 1942 may be the best film of the year, maybe the last 5 years. I'm not saying it's the most entertaining or they're going to be the biggest blockbuster, but the way this film is made, from the acting down to the sound to the art direction, this is a class act movie, and like I said, the best film of the year. Story-wise, though, you can't. It's got to be based on fact. You can't have an Indiana Jones discovers America. You can't have Christopher Columbus running away from peril after peril and rescuing damsels in distress. So
right.
I think
it's not Hollywood.
It could be a little slow to a lot of people. May think this film.
Oh, it runs 2 hours and 30 minutes.
Yeah. Because you're following. You got to follow the facts. There's not a lot of action adventure, but even at its slowest moments, the beauty of the film captivated me. And the ending of the last hour has a good bit of violence in it. And the people that are in for that would probably enjoy the last hour of the movie as well.
This is supposedly, the story of Columbus was written by Fernando Columbus, his son, and that kind of gave it the factual.
Well, one other thing let's give our stars here. You go ahead.
Well, why don't we go ahead and I'm going to give this film 4 stars. I liked it that much, but let's go ahead and get them together.
All right. Well, I would give this movie 4 stars, also based on its technical merit. This is a movie that I think you owe to yourself to see what good filmmaking is all about. It's like the guy who's only seen rock and roll music. He goes to the symphony. Maybe he's going to hate the symphony, but he may come out saying, I sure am glad I saw something like that. I don't think you'll waste your $6 or your 2.5 hours by going to see this movie, and it may give you a little culture to see what true filmmaking is all about. And I would give it 4 stars again, so we're unanimous on the 4 stars.
Right.
All right, let's move on to our next film. They're kind of getting us to wrap up here. Our next film is The Public Eye. This movie is set in the early 1940s during World War II, stars Joe Pesci as a sleazy newspaper photographer who's constantly out casing the city, looking for a dead body that he can get on the tabloids. His motto is, don't get involved, just get the picture. And he seems to have an easy time living with that until he meets a nightclub owner, Barbara Hershey, who kind of hires him to investigate a suspicious-looking character that's hanging around her joint. The guy looks like trouble. Ends up he is. Pesci finds himself soon involved in a scandal involving the government, the mafia, and black market gasoline stamps for the ration stamps during World War II. He's now faced with a dilemma. Does he get involved and bring the scandal down, or does he stay true to his motto and just get the picture? I'm going to roll a clip here of how Joe is talking. The great Brenzini, I believe, is the character, trying to get a picture of a gangster. He's one of the better-known photographers amongst the gangster, and we'll take a look at how he gets them to give him an exclusive photo.
You ever heard of the great Brenzini?
No.
I shot Dutch Schultz, Legs Diamond. None of those guys ever hid their faces from me.
They just said kiss off.
All right. Have it your own way. I get everybody while they're alive or after. I'll let you in on a secret. Nobody looks better after.
Oh, you're that freak that drives around in Sudan at night.
That's me. In your line of work, I'm known as the photographer to the stars.
I heard of you. Them other creeps around?
They're in the corner smoking. One shot, come on. Real fast, nobody even know. Come on, let me immortalize you. Back up a little. Thanks, kid.
All right, hope you enjoyed that clip. I'd like to start off by saying a warning to people to see this movie. This is not a typical Joe Pesci film. He's not playing Leo Getz like in Lethal Weapon, or his character he played in Home Alone, or even in Goodfellas. I think people going in thinking this is going to be a riotous comedy to see the obnoxious New Yorker that they've come to love.
That's not true at all.
I think that this is a much more dramatic role.
This is a great dramatic role. It's very similar to what he did with Goodfellas, which he won his Academy
Well,
Award
in Goodfellas, though, even though he was killing people, people were still laughing as he did. He was such a kind of a funny character. And even though that was happening in this movie, I think that people go in expecting to laugh that this is going to be a comedy. It's not a comedy at all. A lot of movies,
it's got some funny parts, but it's not.
A lot of movies that are good movies, if you go in expecting something, and it's not what you expect, you come out hating the movie. I would suggest just forget this is Joe Pesci and go in there and enjoy the film as a drama. Don't be looking for the type of character you've come to know and love. I think he's departed trying to play a different role.
Yeah, I noticed that the pictures, the photographs that Joe Pesci was taking, they're like Pulitzer Prize-winning pictures and such. I mean, if you see these pictures, they're of people, going away from burning buildings.
The one thing I like to applaud about the movie is its originality. Here is an average guy who gets involved in a scandal, and most movies of this sort kind of follow the straight path. They find the scandal, they bring the scandal down. Here it gets to that point, this movie veers off to the right. You don't really know what he's going to do. And this is a movie where you can't really say too much about it because you'll give it away.
Right.
And I was very satisfied with the ending. I felt the ending was up here for being very satisfying and traumatic. But the rest of the movie, to get to there, kind of dragged me a little bit.
Let's go ahead and average this out on our stars.
All right, what would you give it?
I'd give it 3 stars. How about you?
Well, I was going to give it 2.5 stars, and that comes out to, 2 3/4, and we don't have that on our
So
graph.
why don't we just go with 3 stars then?
All right, 3 stars. Again, I felt the reason I was giving it 2.5, you had a great ending, kind of a mediocre
Well, it
to
takes
get
time
there.
to get started.
A little bit slow, and they kind of average each other's out to just kind of make an average film.
Before we move on, we'd like to remind everybody that this is a call-in show. The number is 873-6713.
All right, one more comment. Usually we can tell you what kind of people will enjoy a certain movie. I think this film will have a problem finding an audience because it's so much, a little bit mystery, a little bit gangland, a little bit scandal. So I really don't know the type of people who are going to guarantee to like this. I think you just got to go to the movie and take a chance. You got a 50-50 chance of liking it or disliking it. So what are we on? Now to our the top 10.
Okay, we're going to take a look at the box office top 10 for the Metro Atlanta area. And starting out right now is number 10 is Serafina. That's with Whoopi Goldberg. This is the second week in the top 10 status. Falling from number 6 to number 9 is Captain Ron. That's the Kurt Russell and Martin Short movie. Number 8, dropping from number 7, is Hellraiser 3.
That's amazing that it's been in so long.
Yeah, I think because of the month being October.
In fact, it dropped out one week and then
Right,
came back.
it came back
Nationally, it's nowhere in the top 10.
Okay, last week at number 5, now at number 7 is Hero. We reviewed that, what was it, 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, I believe so.
And that's with Dustin Hoffman and Gina Davis.
Nationally, that's at number 4, so it's doing a lot better than it is here in Atlanta nationally.
Dropping 2 places to number 6 is Sneakers. That's what we reviewed our first show with Robert Redford and Sidney Poitier
Yeah,
and
it's
an
been in
all-star
the
cast.
top 10 since then, 4 or 5 weeks now.
Debuting at number 5 is a film that we just reviewed, and that's 1492.
And I think that a lot of people are going to shy away from 1492, as is debuting at number 4, because a lot of people are going to think this is just a movie about Columbus, and people who say, who cares about Columbus, are really not going to go to see it. And nationally, it debuted at 7, so it's not really a popular film.
Okay, number 4, dropping from number 2 is Mr. Baseball. That's with Tom Selleck. I also wanted to mention that this is a better role for him than the role of King Ferdinand in Christopher Columbus, not to be confused with 1492. Number 3, for the second week in a row, is The Mighty Ducks. This is with Emilio Estevez. It's the Bad News Bears on Ice is basically what it is. Number 2 is Last of the Mohicans with Daniel Day-Lewis, and that's after 2 weeks at number 1, it drops to number 2. And debuting at number 1 this week is Under Siege. This film stars Tommy Lee Jones and Steven Seagal. This is one of those rock'em sock'em, Die Hard on a Boat movies.
And nationally, it did just as well. In fact, the top 3 movies in Atlanta are the top 3 nationally. And 2 movies are in the top 10 nationally that aren't in Atlanta. Glenn, Glenn Ross, and Mr. Saturday Night are still in the top 10 nationally and are out here in Atlanta.
Okay.
All right, now as we come on back, we move on to Critics' Choice. Like I said, This week's Critic Choice genre is Westerns, but not cowboy and Indians. So I guess that leaves gunfighter movies. And we're going to let Aron start off with his top 3 gunfighter Western movies of all time.
I've never been a big fan of gunfighter movies, but I did have some that I remembered being as some of my favorites. Number 1 is the 1985 classic Silverado. It's directed by Lawrence Kasdan and stars Kevin Kline, Scott Glenn, John Cleese, and Jeff Goldblum, Danny Glover, and Brian Dennehy. It's got an all-star cast in it. It's a Western and good guys versus bad guys type of film, and it's definitely worth checking out. Number 2 in my top 10 is 1980 movie The Long Riders. This was directed by Walter Hill. You might remember him from several other films. He stars the Keach brothers, the Guest brothers, the Carradine brothers, and the Quaid brothers. And they actually play brothers in the film. It's a fun film. It's shoot 'em up, classic Western style. And my third movie was the 1992 film directed by Clint Eastwood called Unforgiven. That was in our top 10 about 3 or 4 weeks ago. And that stars Gene Hackman and Richard Harris and Morgan Freeman. And that's about all I've got to say about Westerns.
All right, now on to my top 3. Number 1 all-time favorite is The Outlaw Josie Wales. This is a story of revenge, and but it's not really the story here that we're looking at. It's the character, Clint Eastwood, Josie Wales. He's one and the same almost. This is the type of hero that every male in America is going to love. Few words, a lot of action, no emotions, kind of grits his teeth a lot when he's talking. This is basically a Western version of the Dirty Harry character, so if you like Dirty Harry, you'll probably love this as well. After watching this film, you want to go out and get a couple 6-shooters and take up gunfighting as a hobby, but only if you can be as macho as Clint. My second favorite is an unknown movie. No one's seen it, and it's called My Name is Nobody. This is a sleeper, I would say. Stars Henry Fonda in his last Western role, but the real genius behind this is Terrence Hill, who plays Nobody. I've never seen a character on film before with the charisma and the charm of this guy. He's an easygoing, laid-back gunfighter. He kind of sashays his way through the Wild West. When people are threatening him to gun him down, he kind of just laughs at them, mocks them, kind of like, "You mean we're going to shoot it out now?" He'll go up, pistol whip them, slap them in the face a couple times, and really humiliate them. Win the battle without even a gun shot at all. And again, the story here, Henry Fonda is an aging gunfighter who wants to retire. Hill's grown up worshiping him, and he doesn't want him to just retire into obscurity. He wants him to go out in style, and style means facing 150 of the Wild Bunch single-handedly. And this is a spoof of Hollywood Westerns, the spaghetti Westerns, not Hollywood. And Sergio Leone was the master of the spaghetti Western, and he produced this movie. It's a comedy, it's slapstick, it's a shoot 'em up. It actually has a lot of sight gags. So it goes from sly wit to actually slapstick comedy. Wonderful film. It's not readily available in a lot of places, but I know Blockbuster on Harrison Memorial Drive does have a copy if you want to check it out. Now my third film, and this is the controversial one, is Heaven's Gate. A lot of people are going to say, "I heard that was a horrible film." Well, that's just it. You heard it was a horrible film because not many people have seen this movie. This movie was with a handful of critics who panned this movie so bad, I believe that they have scared away the general public away from a beautiful movie. This movie is a lot of the criticisms. I've read it all. They say it was. Some people say it was an ugly film the way it was made. This here has a lot of brown, yellowish, and sepia tones, trying to give it that old West feeling, kind of like those little pictures you take when you're up in Dahlonega or somewhere. They dress you up in the old West. It's not exactly that sepia tone, but it captures that feeling. Beautiful filmmaking, and as beautiful it is, it also goes to violence. Some of the violence just hits so suddenly. It leaves you. It's disturbing because of the fact that a lot of it happens in cold blood to innocent people that you really have come to love. Even the ending battle here really disturbs people, really disturbs me, and a lot of battle scenes don't because you get to see people crushed by wagons, blowing their own heads off. It's a really violent film towards the end. And like I said, a handful of critics have really scared people away from seeing a wonderful film, a very long film. It's almost 4 hours long, and there are some slow parts, but it's well worth checking out, especially if you haven't seen it and have heard about how much money it lost, and et cetera, et cetera. Those are my top three westerns.
Why don't we take a look at the cable releases now? Or
All
not
right.
the cable releases.
Well, we're going to look at the home video releases coming out, as well as the movies on pay-per-view. Let's start with the home video releases here. All right, what we've got this week, if I can find my card, coming out October, what is that? 14th, which is today. You got Basic Instinct, Brain Donors, which I haven't heard of, Newsies, which is a musical about the newspaper back in the 20s. Didn't get very good reviews. Red Shoe Diaries, Thunderheart, and I believe, what's Thunderheart with Val Kilmer?
I think so. I'm not sure.
All right. And pay-per-view. Is that on the screen there? I can't see that too well. We got White Men Can't Jump, Wayne's World, Aces, Iron Eagle 3, and Ladybugs. And for information on the GCTV pay-per-view, check Channel 34 for schedules and cost, I believe. All right, and now we're back.
Okay. Each week on Film
Wait,
Forum.
we're not back yet.
Are we back? There we go.
A bunch of drunks back there in the booth.
Each week on Film Forum, we have a special guest, and this week is no different. This week we have Hilary Henkin of The Proper Source. She is a prop fabricator, and we'd like to welcome Hilary to the show. Welcome to the show, Hilary.
How you doing, Hilary?
Thank you, Aaron. Hi, Aaron. Hi, Steve.
Hi. I'd
Pleasure
like
to
to
meet
go
you.
ahead and throw out the first question. What exactly is The Proper Source, and what is a prop fabricator?
The Proper Source is a prop rental facility here in Atlanta. We have a warehouse full of furniture, room accessories, sporting goods, wristwatches, wallets, pretty much you name it. If it's not nailed down, it could be considered a prop. And we have them in stock, and we rent them out to motion pictures, commercials, photographers, theaters, anybody who might need something like that. We differ from some of the furniture rental places in that they're tending to rent for a long term, 3 months, 6 months, a year, where most of our rentals are a week, 2 weeks, maybe a month.
So you say you have a lot of stuff that's on hand, and you also build stuff custom for the movies?
A lot of things that the movies or commercials need doesn't exist, so it has to be built.
Okay.
Sometimes it's something fabulous and magical. Sometimes it's something ordinary that ought to exist, but for some reason no one's ever thought of
What
it
do they
that
do
way.
with those props after they've been built that you build them? Do you get to keep them, or where do they go?
Sometimes I keep them. Depends on the arrangement that I've worked out with the client. Most of the time they end up keeping them. They can save them and put them into storage. Sometimes the ultimate client, say Sears, will keep it because they'll want to use it again in other commercials. It just depends.
I understand you brought some paintings, or not paintings, but some photos that you, I'm talking about like the posters and such, that you have props that were used in some things. Can we get some close-ups on these posters and such? They're
over here
up
on
on
the
the
wall.
wall.
There. One of those
Can we get some
cameras grab it.
close-ups over here?
Tell us a little bit about them.
Okay. This poster was for the Addies, which is the Atlanta Advertising Awards a few years ago, and they called me about needing the gold wreath of garland for his head. So it looks pretty normal when you're seeing it on the camera, but if you see the real one, we made it with wires so they could conform the petals and ribbons to any way they need. And the leaves also have wires in them so they could be bent.
Are you
What
ever
about
on the
this?
set of a movie? Do you go to the sets, or are you just basically a rental house where the movies come to you?
Now I'm basically a rental house. I have worked on movie crews in the set dressing department, which handles the pieces that make the room look right, and also in the prop department, which handles specifically scripted items or things that are mentioned by held by the actor.
That's,
Okay.
that's before you had your prop shop. You
Right.
actually worked
I
in it.
started buying things that I'd needed 2 months ago and couldn't find, or thought, this is neat, I might need this someday. And I got to having a huge storage space that was full of stuff that was just sitting there. So I said, well, let's see if we can start this full time and make a business out of it, and it's worked very well.
I understand you've got also a clip with you, and let's go ahead and take a look at the clip, and maybe you can describe what's going on here.
Let me describe a little bit before we start there. You're going to see 3 pieces in the clip. It's a balsa wood airplane. The first one you'll see has no wings, the second one has no nose, and the third one's complete.
Okay, so if we can see this, and Hilary might describe it. Okay, this is,
There's the plane. We rigged up a small fan and rigged up the plane with wires so that it would take off in a strong breeze or look like a strong breeze.
okay.
Was this on any particular movie?
This was for a commercial for one of the utility companies in town.
That's the second
There's
plane?
the second plane that's glued to a real wall.
Okay.
And
then-
that was the third plane that we built a false wall, cut a hole in it so that he could pull the
Okay.
plane out from the other side. So we had to build 3 different but identical balsa wood planes in a matter of about 2 days.
I understand you've also brought some other props with you.
Mm-hmm.
If we can just go ahead and okay.
Someone called me needing a really pretty compass to put on a desk. And they don't make really pretty compasses to put on desks, so I built this one. I made it with a fake needle so that no matter which way they wanted the needle to point laying flat, they wouldn't have to worry about which direction north was. You can see when I turn the compass, the needle pretty much points down because this is a little longer, a little heavier.
And Columbus certainly could not have used that.
He
Why
might
don't you put it in the,
he might have found the West Indies that way. Then I had someone call me for an Olympic torch, and I didn't build this, but I had this built. It's made for real flames, and we rigged it up with a stem here so that the photographer could mount it on the wall so that no one would have to hold it. He could turn it at an angle, whatever he needed to do, so it could be suspended in space.
It looks great.
Thank you.
That was basically in response to the Olympics being here in Atlanta?
Yes.
For commercial
It was
use?
for one of the major banks. They wanted their president to be having the torch. So that's what we built that
You ever
for.
come into contact with like the art directors and some of the higher up people on the movies?
I come into contact with the art directors, the set decorators, the prop masters, and that kind of thing. I don't meet with producers in that level.
Let's go ahead and take a look at some of the other ones that you brought with you.
Mm-hmm. The only other prop I brought with me was something I built for theatrical plays a little while ago. They wanted a magical mirror. They didn't know what they wanted it to look like, but it needed to be fairy tale looking and magical. So I came up with this, and the pieces are somewhat reflective. They didn't need it to be highly reflective because that would really wreak havoc with their lights. And the actress could turn it into the magic mirror, and it reflects light and looks real interesting without being distracting.
Yeah, that's one last question before we wrap up here. Is there any type of training that you went through, schooling or anything to do anything
There was
of this nature?
There was nothing in school that taught me really how to do this. Most of my experience was on the job, working with people that were smarter than I and knew more, learning furniture history, what decorations work for what period. Really, it's been all on-the-job training.
Thank you for being with us.
Thanks a lot, Hilary.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure.
Don't forget that next week at 10 p.m. here on Cable Channel 12 and on Film Forum, we're going to be doing 2 new major releases. We're going to be having a special guest that is a special effects technician in honor of Halloween, and also in honor of Halloween, our Critics' Choice will be alien science fiction movies.
Monster or just alien?
Alien monsters. Okay, and that's it for Film Forum this week. Join us next week here on Cable Channel 12.